Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Trails Radio Show. Thank you for joining us. Today, my guest is singer, songwriter, and musician, Mr. Michael Steinman. Thank you, and join us in a few minutes. My first question to you is, how did your career begin? You're a singer, musician, songwriter. How did all that begin for you?
Well, it all started probably in the 1960s, very early on. I used to listen to the radio. And I had a habit of playing along with the tunes I heard on the radio. I would bang along on my dad's car's his dashboard to keep the beat, and I really got into it. I felt the music more than anything else. So that's how it got started. And, of course, when we watched the Beatles on TV in 1964, I made myself a little cardboard guitar, and my friends and I had a lot of fun imitating the Beatles. So I guess you might say that's when it started for me.
Yeah, and you've been in it ever since. That's when the singing bug hit you, huh? Got you.
That's when you might say that, yeah. And the funny thing, for years I kind of knew in my head I could play guitar or I could write songs. I didn't do it necessarily until I was a teenager. And then I got my first guitar when I was 19 years old. I taught myself how to play the guitar. Immediately, I discovered... I was copying other entertainers' music, and I saw, you could just put chords together and make your own music. So I did. And I played some songs for my family, did a little concert, and they all listened, and it was really a lot of fun. So I found out probably in my late teens I could actually write songs and entertain people by playing them.
Mm-hmm.
But, early on I was in a lot of cover bands. I enjoyed playing in front of various audiences. But then I went into, college and went off and did other things, and music kind of took a back seat because I saw it more as a hobby and something you did for fun than just a career. It was kind of far-fetched to think you could have a career in music. But, I eventually became a teacher, and I knew I had all these songs in me. I knew I had music I could produce and play, and I just didn't do it. And in 2016, I was involved in a pretty serious car crash. And while I was recuperating, it made me come to the realization that the time is now, regardless of my age, to do something, to actually start to produce these songs and write them and perform them. And that's what really got me kind of kicked into high gear at this stage, at this point in my life.
Yeah, so you consider it as a career now? I know you just said, you didn't really, it took a back seat, music did. You didn't really see it as a career, but now that you look back on it, do you consider it being a career now, what you're doing?
Well, you could say that, although I look at it more like it's actually who I am. I retired. I was a teacher, and I retired in 2018. And when I retired, I sat down and I said, I'm going to ask myself a question, and it's going to dictate the rest of my life. And the question was, who am I? And at first, when you ask yourself that question, or if you ask somebody else the question, they say, I like to do this, or I like to do that. But that's not really what the question was. The question was, who was I? And I discovered that amongst other things, I was an artist. I valued beauty and art and expression really more than anything else in the world. And so that kind of was my foray into sitting down and starting to produce a lot of this music. So I don't know if you'd call that a career, although I've sold some music and I have played on various indie stations around the world. But it's more like who I am. Mm-hmm. I write music, and that's because I have to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Your career becomes one with you. You are one with that path you've chosen. I full-heartedly agree with that.
Yeah. And it feels good. You kind of know when you hit that niche, it just feels right. And the music business, which is a business, don't kid yourself. Like everything else, it's like selling potato chips or cars or whatever. It's different now than when I grew up. Different ways you go about getting your music written, produced, and heard. And I just enjoy making the music. If a lot of people listen to it and like it, that's great. If a few people listen to it and like it, that's great. You know, if I only hear it and I enjoy it, that's great. So I don't really get all hung up on making money or a career, because that would change things. It's more about the sheer enjoyment of producing a piece of art.
Absolutely. If you enjoy what you're doing, it's really not considered work.
Right.
My next question to you is, what do you find is the most challenging or the most difficult part being a musician, singer, and songwriter? What is the most challenging or difficult?
Well, I would say getting over self-doubt. I remember for years when I was a professional musician and I was in various cover bands, I didn't have any problem playing the music of other groups, singers, entertainers. However, I kept thinking to myself, boy, it would be a big leap to actually have the courage to write and produce my own song, because then people would see me. I'd be exposed. You know, it'd be like I'm actually revealing myself in ways that I wasn't used to. So I would say that getting over that feeling of self-doubt and nervousness about expressing yourself and putting yourself on the line is probably the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle to overcome.
Yes, self-doubt or rejection, you know, because this is a business to be in it. If it's singing or songwriting or being a musician, or if it, in my turn to play, if it's acting or radio, you know, rejection or self-doubt. It's the business, it's nothing personal.
Exactly. You know, the feeling of being rejected, or the fear of rejection, devastates most people, because, again, I think if you look and say, well, who am I? And you say, I'm an artist, I produce, and I don't really care who. You know, art is very subjective. A performance is very subjective. You can be great, but if the right people don't see it, or if people mock it or make fun of it, you can become crushed and devastated, and you don't do your art. You don't let yourself be yourself anymore. Mm-hmm. So the trick is to kind of put that to the side and say, you know, for example, I may write a song and people might listen and politely nod their head. And great. They don't like it. That's fine. I still write songs, and maybe another song I write they'll like more. It's for me. I'm the audience that I write for. And as an actor, you're probably performing most of all for yourself. You know, you're getting in touch with yourself and putting forth that which is going to be true.
Yes, if you're not happy, you know, you are you. You know, you have to be the center of it. You know, it's what you like and what you have to enjoy.
Yeah, that's where the motivation comes from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What kind of genre of music do you particularly delve in? I know you said you were a fan of the Beatles. So is it country, rock and roll? What do you?
Yes. You know, it's funny. I would have to say, in a single word, it's probably Americana or folk music. But everything I've heard in my life, whether it's a symphony by Beethoven or it's Indian music from the Far East, or it all influences you. It's somehow it's sound, and the sound and the music, if it touches you, if it creates a feeling, that's what gets to me and motivates me. So I try to do that with my music as well, where when you listen to it, it makes you have a feeling, as opposed to just enjoying it and tapping your foot. I play all the instruments. I like to use different types of instruments, but mostly guitar, because I've been a guitar player all my life. I play the bass. I play percussion. But you can do a lot of different sounds with that, with the timing and with the lyrics and the verses and so on and so forth. You can really arrange things differently. So I'd say my genre is probably overall Americana folk type of music, but I mix pop and all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love music. It's hard to believe without music, what the world would be. You know, it's around us all the time.
Sure. Yeah. It really is, in a way. It's your emotions done in a way where you can hear it. You can sense it. Say one of your senses.
Do you have any upcoming projects or any upcoming gigs you can share?
I do. It's funny. I'm always recording almost, it seems, but I'm in the middle right now of putting together a new, I call it a group of songs. You might call it an album. I'll probably have anywhere from 10 to 14 songs. And I did some recording this past Friday. I put 2 of them together. I work very fast because I rehearse and practice. And then when I actually start recording, I just pretty much flip all the switches and start playing. But that will be this new album, which will be coming out in approximately 2 months, will be my 6th complete album that I've done, where I played everything, wrote everything, produced everything. And I have many more songs as well. I just have to kind of group them to put them out.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing it. I've listened to some of your music. I think it's great. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's simple and it's kind of demo style. But again, it's me, and I'm not trying to be producing the world's most sophisticated tune, but rather just put a good song out there. And, I got to tell you a little story. When I was a teacher, up until 2016, I used to like to contact people in professional areas and invite them to go talk to my students. And one guy I connected with, his name is Keith Olson. He was a musician from the 60s. He was in a group called The Music Machine, which was a great group. But he also was a producer. He produced a lot of big names, including Fleetwood Mac and Pat Benatar, people like that. But I had him come down to my school, and we became friends. And one day I was talking with him, and I asked him, I said, with all the bells and whistles available to you as a producer in a studio, what's the most important thing? And what do you find to be the most useful? And he just said the most important thing is a well-written song. Is you can have a moderate, a mediocre, a poorly written song, overproduced, that doesn't sound particularly great. It just sounds blah. Or you can have a great song that's played on an out-of-tune ukulele, and you can tell. So I've always used that as my theory behind when I write. I just write good songs. They're not overly produced. I don't sing the best, but they're me, and I love being able to do that. So thank you for your compliments on my tunes.
It's a pleasure. My last question to you is, and I know we talked a little bit about it, we talked about, don't get self-doubt, don't rejection, but what is your words of wisdom or advice to people who want to get into the music industry, who want to be a songwriter, musician, or a singer?
Well, I would say to write and put your heart into it. Write what is you. Write what's meaningful. And don't try to write to other people or don't try to impress other people. There's so many musicians and songwriters out there. You be yourself, because whatever you write is going to be your legacy, and it's also your contribution to the world and to the art world and so on and so forth. So just be yourself. That's really the best thing to do. And put your passion into it. Don't be afraid to try something new and let her fly, because all the great, groups and artists and movie makers and so on and so forth were people who had the courage to kind of do their own thing. And some people even mocked them or didn't think they would amount to much, but they did. So be yourself, be passionate, and don't be afraid.
Absolutely, and stay true to yourself, and there's always room to learn. You never stop learning.
Never stop. And I'm living proof of that. I'm no spring chicken, but I'm going like I'm 18 years old here.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad we were finally able to do this interview, and I'll send you a link when it's up so you can listen to it, and it's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, Trey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Okay.
Bye-bye. And that was singer, musician, and songwriter Mr. Michael Steinman. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, stay tuned for next time, and God bless.